Hello and welcome to this video tutorial from blendercookie.com. My name is Jonathan Williamson, and today we're going to start a really cool new project. And this is actually our Halloween project that we've been kind of hinting about in a few different places on our Twitter and Facebook and such. And that is, we're going to create a werewolf. Now, when I say that we're going to create a werewolf, I don't mean that we're just going to sculpt just a cool werewolf head or anything, even though we are going to do that. We're going to take it a step further and sculpt not only a werewolf head, but we're also going to sculpt a human head and then create the transformation between the two. So you can actually see the human head transforming into the werewolf. And this should be a really cool effect, and it's something that's actually a little easier to do than you might initially think. The reason that is maybe a little harder, or why most people see it as a little harder, is there's a couple of specific things that you have to do contrary to, say, normal workflow. And the main thing, the way that we're going to make this work, is by using shape keys, where we will use shape keys to transform the human head into the werewolf head. But in order for this to work, we can only make shape keys on a solid mesh, or in other words, we cannot add them to a multi-resolution mesh. What this means is that we're going to sculpt two models. We're going to sculpt one that's a full human, another one that's a werewolf, and then we're going to apply the multi-resolution once we're done sculpting on each of those models, and then actually join them as shape keys. And I'll show you exactly how to do that. I'm not going to get into too much detail just yet, because we want to go ahead and get to the fun part and start sculpting. Now, just so we can kind of get an idea of where we're going early on, we're going to go ahead and sculpt the werewolf head first. I know that it's definitely the one that's a lot more fun to do, and it's, a lot more entertaining and such, and so we're going to go ahead and start by doing that. What I've set up for us is I have just this very simple base mesh, which if we go into edit mode, you can see exactly what it is. It's just extruded from basically a subdivided cube, which then I extruded a couple more loops for the front region around the nose and the mouth, extruded in the lips a little bit, also deleted a hole for the lips so that we can create an open mouth. And then I also have a very simple mouth interior that just has basically gums and interior of the mouth and a tongue. And this will just give us enough to kind of sculpt in the teeth, sculpt in the tongue, and whatnot. But we're keeping them as separate objects because it'll just make it a lot easier to do the actual sculpting then. Now, one thing that I want to go ahead and do, just real quick, that I forgot to do this beforehand, but I want to go ahead and add some ears to this, just to make it a little simpler to do the actual sculpting. But when I say we're going to add some ears, literally all we're going to do is we're going to select this portion here, just like this, and we're going to hit E to extrude, take it out, we'll take it up a little bit, maybe we'll scale it along the Y-axis, rotate around the Z, and then take it back a little bit like this. Literally, that's all we're going to do. We just need some extra geometry in there for the ears so that we can add them pretty easily, because the ears are something that are not very easy to sculpt out of a flat form. And so with that, I'm then just going to go ahead and delete everything, hit Shift-C to recenter my cursor, select everything, Shift-D, scale around the cursor with period, and then SX -1, select everything, and W, remove doubles. I'll also hit Control-N to recalculate the normals there. Now the reason you can't see my cursor or anything like that is because I have the only render option checked, and then I have a dark gray world background set. You'll notice that this actually directly affects the color back there. And I just like using this when sculpting because it allows me to put more emphasis from a display standpoint on the model itself rather than on everything around the model. It just kind of makes seeing the details a little easier. So we're going to go ahead and save this, and then let's go ahead and just start the fun part and begin sculpting. Although before we do that, I want to do one more thing, and that is just select everything, hit Shift-D, right-click, and then M, and move this to layer 2. Now on these, let's go ahead and make sure we name each one of these objects. I'm just going to name this human_eyes. This should be human_teeth, head, and then we'll name this one here on layer 2, which actually I have a extra one for when I was testing. So apologies for that. But here we're going to go ahead and name this one as werewolf teeth and werewolf, and then werewolf eyes. And remember, you can rename things from the outliner by just control clicking on them. And so first on this one, on layer 2, what we want to do, and the key to making this work, is that each of our objects, the human head and the werewolf head, have to have at all times the exact same poly count. Well, not necessarily at all times, but when we go to join them as shape keys of each other, they have to have the exact same poly count. And so the way we'll do this is just by ensuring that when we're done sculpting, that they each have the same level of subdivision. Since they're based on the same base mesh, this should not be much of a problem. So adding a multi-resolution modifier, I'm pretty much ready to begin sculpting, and so I'm just going to go ahead and click subdivide, and I'm just going to subdivide twice to get me a good base working level, and I'll go ahead and switch into sculpt mode. Now I'm also going to go ahead and just hit shift space to maximize my viewport here, just so I can get a better idea of what I'm looking at. And now I'm just going to go ahead and just do a lot of freehand sculpting on this and just kind of narrate as I'm going. I have some other images up on my other screen that I'm looking at just for basic ideas and references. I don't have licenses to them, so unfortunately I can't display them. But if you want to recreate this effect, just pull up any werewolf that you like and start sculpting away. So essentially this is freehand sculpting from just what I've gathered from various other references and ideas in my head. So for this, what I want to do is I'm going to first use my crease brush by hitting Shift-C or selecting it here. And I'm just going to draw in some of the basic details. So just kind of laying out the foundation. So maybe I'll draw in the nose is right here. And one thing you want to be sure to check is that your X symmetry is enabled. By default, it's generally off. So maybe we'll go ahead and put in the basic nose right there and bring the bridge of the nose up like this. Maybe the eyes are going to be right in here. Maybe we'll go ahead and strengthen this a little bit, maybe make it a little bit larger. Okay, the eyes are right about there. I'm going to bring the jawline down. Maybe do some kind of cheekbones right in here. And so using the crease brush just kind of allows me to kind of lay out some basic details, just kind of trace them in so I get a better idea of what I'm working with. Just kind of drawing some around the eyes, or sorry, around the ears. This will be the brow right in here. Right in here. And that's pretty much enough to map it out for me. I'll maybe draw that in around the base of the nose. Okay, so that's pretty much it. That kind of just maps out kind of what I'm doing, and I like the positioning of things initially. And so I'm going to go ahead and switch over to my clay brush just by hitting C. And something I like to do that I've already set up here, well actually, ignore this for the time being. I'm just going to go and remove my texture, as we'll look at that a little bit later, but that's by using what's called a clay strips brush. But for the time being, just go ahead and ignore that. And I'm just going to set my strength by hitting Shift F, my size with F, and I would just want to start kind of drawing in here. Set the plane offset back to 0 for the default. Maybe increase our strength just a little bit more. Drawing some around the chin. And really, we're not doing detail work just yet. We're just kind of laying down a lot of the foundations, kind of getting the basic feeling of our sculpt. I'm going to go ahead and turn off pressure sensitivity on my strength for the time being. Put in some for the brows and the cheekbones. Kind of push the eyes back in a little bit. And since I've already set up the spheres back there for the eyes, I can get a pretty good indication of where I'm at based on how much of it I can see. And that looks pretty good. Maybe take the nose back in a little bit. Remember, we're sculpting the werewolf here, and while there's obviously no paradigm as to how the werewolf needs to look, we're just gonna kind of do something in terms of what we like. And my personal preference for this is to do something that's a little more human-like rather than just wolf-like. Since it's basically a wolf-human hybrid, I like the more human aspect to it. And so that's kind of what I'm going to be shooting for in this. I'm going to use my grab brush by hitting G. Maybe I'll just pull this back a little bit. Pull this back. Just kind of get some better shape to it. From the front view, I might go ahead and pull in some of these areas. Okay, that's looking pretty good. I'm going to go ahead and jump up another level, so I'll subdivide it, go up to level 3, and this ought to be enough So by switching back to my clay brush, that I can actually start sculpting in some details. I can smooth anytime that I want to by holding down Shift and then just drawing over my brush, and that will take the current settings for the smooth brush and use them to draw in. So you can just kind of activate that at any time very quickly and easily. And what I'm really trying to do right now is not so much work on the details, but lay the foundation for all the different forms. So I'm basically just putting all the different shapes together to get the final look. And really what I'm focusing on are all the various muscle groups of my object. So the muscles around the mouth, around the cheeks, all these different shapes that I really want to focus on to get my final effect looking really good. And maybe I'll go ahead and bring the mouth forward quite a bit more by just pull this forward a bit. I want to be sure that it's got enough of a wolf-like aspect to it. So kind of stronger jaws, a little more forward. I'm going to go ahead and bring the corners of the mouth back. Right now it's a little bit monkey-like, which is not exactly what I'm going for. And we don't need to worry about the teeth yet, as we'll adjust those as we need to. I'm going to bring the lower jaw back just a bit like that. Bring this back in. I'm going to take the ears up. Now, a great tool for doing things like ears is a snake hook, because it kind of acts like the grab brush, but it releases as you go, and so it kind of leaves some geometry behind, allowing you to get kind of a little bit of a better result. Okay. And this is maybe a little too golem-like at the moment, so I'm going to pull some of these areas back just a little bit. Pull this area up. I'm just going to use my smooth brush by hitting S and smooth some of these areas out so I can get a little bit clearer idea of how the actual shape is looking. Okay. And as soon as I nail the shape down, which maybe I'm just going to go ahead and do a little bit more actual sculpting detail so I can get a little bit better idea of it. As soon as I do that, I'll go ahead and position the teeth so that again I can help get a clear indication of how it's looking. I'm going to bring the brows way down. Bring the nostrils down a little bit like that. Okay, and let's see. I'm going to start drawing in the inside of the ear just a little bit, just kind of pushing them back. I also use my smooth brush on the ear a bit to help kind of even some of that geometry back out in the case that I kind of squished it a bit too much. brows just a little bit more. And I'm almost ready to go ahead and jump up another level. In fact, I'm going to go ahead and do that now. So I'm going to subdivide it. You notice now I'm up to 46,000 polygons. So I'm really actually pretty low still as far as the end result is concerned, because by the end we'll probably be quite a bit higher than that. And drawing in some of the nostril shapes here. I'm going to switch to my draw brush and use a pretty high strength and a low size and just push that back in for the nostrils there. I'm going to do the same thing kind of on the eyes right here. And then I'm going to use my crease brush with Shift C to draw up around the eyes. It works really good for drawing in the eyelids actually, because it kind of gives you a sharp edge to it. Smooth that back out a little bit. Didn't really like how that was looking. There we go. That looks a little better. Use my draw brush with a large size. Just kind of push that whole area back. And right now, I've got too fat of a face, I feel, so it's a little too bat-like almost. So I'm going to bring some of these areas back. And we might give it a little bit more of a snout to help show the werewolf effect. And remember, it's okay that if it looks really rough right now, because we've got a long ways to go. Pull some of this back and get a little bit more of a snout effect. That's one of the advantages to sculpting, is that we've got the ability to just kind of use a lot of trial and error and see what we like, see what we don't like. And in this case, what I was doing initially I really didn't like. It was much more vampire-like than werewolf-like, which was not what I was going for. And so we're going to flip it around and do something a little more wolf-like. Smooth all this area out, and we will do some adjustments there. If we need to, we can move the eyes on it. There we go. This is definitely working much, much better. Obviously I need to do some shaping here. I'm going to go down to a lower sculpt size so I can help kind of smooth it out. Anytime you're doing some major shape changes, you want to probably do it with a fairly low or small sculpt size. And I'm just going to go ahead and hide the eyes for the time being. So I'm going to go to object mode, select the eyes, select the mouth as well. And I'll just click hide. Go back to sculpt mode. Smooth out the ear here. Pull it up. Pull that back. Let's go ahead and grab the neck back here. And we're just going to pull it way up. And we'll pull this way back. We'll smooth it dramatically. Oops. There we go. This is definitely looking a little more dog-like than I initially planned, but that's okay because I think the end result will be a lot better and much more recognizable as a werewolf per se. Okay, now I'm going to give it one last once over with the smooth brush, and then we're going to go in and go to one of our higher levels and really start doing some more real sculpting. Notice on the higher levels, since we've really adjusted things, that it changed completely, we need to go back in and re-sculpt it. And so actually what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to level 3. I'm going to go ahead and delete the higher level, as really they're just conflicting with each other. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and start doing more of my sculpting on here again. So we're going to give this another shot. Bring the ears out right here. I'm going to go ahead and grab my snake hook brush, pull this up, pull the ears up like this. Go back to my grab brush. I'll pull that down, pull that up. Give it kind of dog-like ears. And we'll use our clay brush, fill some of this in, bring it down to about there. Then I'm going to switch my draw brush, go down to a smaller size, and let's just push this in right in here. We'll smooth it. We're going to push this way in there, smooth all that back. And let's see, let's go ahead and I'm going to use my crease brush again with Shift C to kind of lay out some of the details. I'm going to go with a much lighter brush and a smaller size. So I really like where the eyes are showing up right in here, and so I'm going to go ahead and use that. Go ahead and just push those back a good bit. Although we maybe need to go ahead and hold them in quite a bit there. I'm going to kind of separate the top and bottom lip a little bit. That's looking pretty good. So at this point I'm going to go and go back to my crease brush and just kind of draw in some of the things that I see as kind of some initial details. Got the nose right in here. Got muscle flow through here, coming down through there. The ear through there. Got the brows and corner of the eyes. Okay, let's go ahead and we'll subdivide it, and we'll go ahead and do a bit more creasing to kind of show where we're going with some areas. Crease this right in the middle, then we'll go ahead and crease across there, down to the eyes, crease this through to the eyes, around the eyes there. We can draw in an initial eyelid like this, and like this. Got the nose coming in through there. various muscle groups in the neck, down the neck. This will be one big muscle coming through in here. Kind of smooth some of that area out. I'm going to switch back my clay brush with C, and we'll just kind of start drawing in some of the volume a little more. I'm going to maybe use a softer brush. Go ahead and pull this out a bit more. Now I'm going to go ahead and use my clay strips brush that I was talking about, which is literally nothing more than a solid white texture. In this case, just a solid white image that I think is like 256 by 256. And if we set the curve to maximum, then we can get some really nice effects, and allows us to really just layer up detail very easily. It also kind of provides its own detail just by layering things. And so it helps to, in the end, after we're working with pretty high resolution, it'll kind of create some of the detail for us. And so now things are going to start going pretty quickly, and we'll just kind of see where it goes. I'm going to go ahead and turn on pressure sensitivity for my, already is on for my radius. And so at this point, I'm just kind of sculpting what I feel looks good and trying to kind of follow the general muscle groups and such, kind of taking into account the fact that it's wolf-like, but since its original form is human, then I want to try and adapt some human anatomy aspects to it. My crease brush, I can draw through in here. Use my draw brush to just push that back for the interior of the ear. The draw brush works really well for basically punching holes in a model or pushing areas way back. Get some kind of cool brow effects going on, kind of simulating the effect of eyebrows, but also giving it a more sinister look. I'm going to go ahead and switch out of sculpt mode for a second and hit Alt-H to grab my eyeballs here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to add in a shape key for this, and then a second shape key, which will be the werewolf eyes. So I can actually go ahead and name this one as werewolf eyes. And then we'll just go ahead and move this up and kind of reposition it right about in there. We'll move the eyes a little bit closer. something about like that. And so then as we push this up, we'll be able to actually transform that with the rest of the wolf to get the final effect. And so now I'm just going to hide just the mouth and then go in here and switch back to sculpt mode. And I notice that we are seeing some drastic detail on here, so I'm just going to smooth those out and smooth those out. And actually, no, I'm not going to worry about that because it's only on the highest level or the lowest level that we see those. It seems I may have... Oh, okay, so we may need to re-sculpt a little bit. That's one of the problems with working in between levels, and why you want to try and do everything on the lowest level possible, and then go back, is you tend to screw up the levels in between. And it's just one of the downsides to how the system currently works. So unfortunately, we've got to redo this real quick here. But that's all right. It's not a real big deal. It's pretty easy to do. Go and grab my snake hook brush again. Okay, there we go. And then we can go ahead and sculpt the details. And the reason that we don't really care if the lower levels are messed up is because the final result, we're strictly going to be working with the highest level. And so we're really not too concerned if the lower level have some problems of sorts. And so since it's kind of a bug that we can't really control without going back and starting over, we're really just not going to worry about it. Okay, here on the eyes, I'm going to go ahead and smooth the area out, and then I'm going to use my draw brush or this clay brush, push that back, and I'm going to grab my crease brush and draw this up for the eyelid. About like that. Then the lower eyelid. Push that back. Okay, so that's initially a good result that I want. I can go ahead and sculpt on the nose here, get a dog-like shape to it. Use a small draw brush. Actually, okay, I don't have enough detail in here yet, so I'm going to go ahead and subdivide this again. Push this back. I'm just sculpting all the different shapes right in here. I'm going to go ahead and use my crease brush, crease that nicely around the nose, help kind of definitely show some of that detail in there. Go ahead and crease around some of these areas again. for the various wrinkles. Oops, and apologies for the phone. Okay, so still just using my crease brush and such. I'm just going in, kind of laying out some of these various forms here. Switch back to my clay brush, which again, remember I'm using the clay strips effect. Now another thing that I like to do is, on a lot of these, since you tend to create very rounded forms, which isn't necessarily what we want, I also like to use the polish brush, which you can find right here, with a low strength, and just kind of go over some of these forms, which will help just kind of take off the peaks of them and create more just planar forms or flat surfaces along them. And we lose some of that surface detail that the clay strips adds, but we also get more forms to, or planes to the surface of the model, which is also a very good thing from a style aspect, but also it helps to just kind of show all the different forms in the model. And it can really help clean up a result. And then what I'll generally do is I'll go back in with the clay strips brush to kind of add in or add back in some of that surface detail that I really like. Use my crease brush, draw some of that in. I'll go back in with my clay strips. Maybe lower the strength on my clay strips just a little bit, as it's a little bit strong right now. Maybe I lowered a little too much. And we're not going to go a whole lot further on this since we're just doing the surface here, and then we'll follow it up in part 2 by doing the teeth, and then tentatively part 3 then we'll work on the human side of things, and then start going in and really doing the transformation. And that's really the fun part, just because you really start to see the fruits of your labor really come out. I'm going to grab my pinch brush a little bit and just kind of enhance some of these creases. Again, we're not going to do a whole lot more in here. I just want to kind of help get some basic detailing in. Oops. Hit V to switch into vertex paint mode, which is definitely not what we want. I'm drawing some of the detail in the ear itself. Use my draw brush to push the inside of the ear back in. Then I can go ahead and pinch this shape up. Using my crease brush, I can also enhance it a little bit. Take that in there. Pinch this up with my pinch brush. Make that nice and sharp. Make this nice and sharp. Okay, and we're almost done here, at least for today. Maybe I'll just do a little bit more detailing right in here. Let's take this in. I'll go ahead and pinch in some of these forms, make them nice and clean and sharp. We'll go ahead and carve in some detail with the crease brush in the bags under the eyes. Just adding in a bit more volume there, a bit more volume here. And then finally, to pretty much call it a day, we'll just do a little bit of extra detail around the neck here. Just kind of improving some of the brush strokes right in here in terms of the final appearance. There's one thing you want to be careful with the clay strips effect is to watch your brush strokes at times, just so that you don't just create an absolute mess. You want to actually create something that creates or builds up a nice texture. And it looks like we've got a hole right here. Anytime you get those holes, you need to be sure to stop what you're doing and undo until they're gone. It's just a bug of sorts in the sculpting system, but one that can completely destroy your model if you don't catch it in time, and you just have to step all the way back until you find where it happened, and then you can undo it and move forward once more. But definitely not a fun experience if you are quite a ways in and then you don't catch it until a long time afterwards. I've definitely had it happen a time or two. Okay, and just so I don't keep you too much longer, we're going to go ahead and call it quits for the time being on this. We definitely got quite a ways to go still. We're going to go ahead and we'll sculpt in all the teeth, the interior of the mouth, and then we'll sculpt the human side of things, and then put it all together and create our final effect to get a really, really cool result that I think most of you will be really happy with and really excited to see in action. So I'm going to call it quits for the time being right here.